Castlevania Lord of Shadows 2 is the conclusion of the Lord of Shadows saga. Now that I've said that, don't rush out and buy it just yet, because as much as I personally enjoyed, had fun, and fell in love with the first Lord of Shadows, much of the issues that the first game suffered with is magnified in Lord of Shadows 2. The first Lord of Shadows had something going for it. We've never seen this before in a Castlevania game. The controls, the combat, the camera, even the environment, it all felt fresh, invigorating, something I could sink my teeth into. The idea of what Lord of Shadows 2 could be is what kept me going through the first few hours, and I was interested to see how they innovated in the second game in the series. Based off the first game though, I knew this game was going to start off slow and then build upon itself. At least this is what I hoped was going to happen, but this is definitely not what I got. There are two main locations that you traverse in Lord of Shadows 2, the modern city and the castle. Between those two, the castle is definitely the winner. This is where the game really looks and feels like a real Castlevania game. The Castlevania feel is still here, just not everywhere. The city levels feel generic and lower budget, but the castle segments are spot on. The atmosphere, the music, the detail is everywhere. The statues you walk past, the layout of the traps, the puzzles, even the objects simply put there for you to break. Sorry if I'm gushing here a little bit, but these areas feel like how a Castlevania game should feel. It feels like an old castle that was built on the backs of hundreds of men and then aged to perfection. The decor and the beauty of the castle is amazing and worthy of a Castlevania title. But anytime you're moving around in the city, the game feels lacking. It no longer felt like a Castlevania game. The city is just bland, it feels lifeless. Later in the game it picks up and the city becomes a little more interesting, but you've got to suffer through decor that you would not expect from the creators of the first Lord of Shadows. The worst part about the levels though is the level design. The layout of the maps in the Lord of Shadows 2 is definitely one of its worst features. I would actually put this right next to the game's stealth mechanics as one of its worst qualities. We'll talk about stealth in a second. Moving around is such a chore and it takes forever to make it anywhere. The map system is lacking. There are only a few options of locations that you can fast travel to, and from there you've got to spend 20 minutes traversing areas that you've already been to get to where you want. It's not very forgiving or easy to use, and it will turn the task of 100%ing the game into a bigger chore than it needed to be. Better level design and more fast travel locations would have helped the game out greatly for the hardcore collectors that the game is actually aimed at. At the very least, they could have copied the stage system of the first Lord of Shadows. At least then there'd be more cohesion between the first two games, and moving around would be a lot easier. One thing I agree on with most reviews that I've seen is that the stealth sections of the game suck. All over the internet, all of the reviews hate the stealth sections of the game. Forget the story. Though the one presented here does not fit the persona of Dracula, who is supposed to be the ruler of all vampires. But let's ignore that for a second and just judge the stealth sections and purely that. It feels like something they just threw in last minute, or something they felt they had to put in since Dracula's in a weakened state. And to attempt to make the player feel weak, they're forced to sneak around. Since Dracula isn't up to full power, there are enemies that the game says he cannot beat, and that's why he's forced to sneak around. Hell, when the game puts you in stealth mode, you can't even attack, so you can't even find out if you can take them or not. I would think this would be an achievement possibility, you know? Beat Mr. fucking hard fuckface and his fucking friends. But unfortunately, this is a lost opportunity. You have to sneak past guys that I knew in the back of my mind I could take if the game let me. So you're forced to sneak past the unbeatable fuckface, and you have two ways you can do this. The first way is through the bats. You can send a swarm of bats to basically annoy your target. Pretty much like how the fairies worked in the first Lord of Shadows. Once that guard is distracted, you basically can do whatever you want though. He literally can't see you, which makes no sense. You can clearly see that the bats aren't blocking his vision, and he should be able to see you and thus react to you. Hell, one bat swarm can actually distract two guards. The second guard is so concerned about his buddy that he wants to help him, so much so that you're basically invisible to both of them. Granted, the bat swarm only lasts as long as it takes for the second guard to get there, but while this is going on, feel free to walk up to the second guard and give him an atomic wedgie, although he probably wouldn't notice that either. The other way to sneak past guards is by turning into a rat and going through ventilation shafts and other small holes. It felt a bit odd to me that the guards didn't react to a pack of rats making circles around the room. However, if you got too close, they definitely did react, and let's just say I didn't know a rat had that much blood. I mean, look at this. It's freaking bucket o' rat parts. The rat isn't just a stealth element though, because it's used to solve puzzles as well. You can shoot through wires to open doors, move through broken down buildings through small holes, and traverse dangers of ventilation shafts, like this one. Because we all know this is what small mammals deal with on a daily basis. Any way you slice it though, the stealth sections aren't done well, and it brings down the whole feel of the game. The silver lining of this is that there's only a few stealth sequences in the game, and most of the time you're only sneaking past 3 or so guards, which takes all of 10 minutes. Unless you die, then it's 20 minutes. I did get stuck on the final stealth puzzle of the game, but most people really seem to hate the second to last stealth puzzle of the game. I won't give it away, but it's right before a boss with leaves on the ground. Step on the leaves, you die! That doesn't sound bad, but then you throw in the fact that the boss seems to always know where the hell you are. This stupid, omnipresent AI is definitely annoying. The bosses that have a stealth section where you hide from the boss before fighting them is just silly and pointless. I don't understand why they felt they need to put this shit in there. Just let me fight the boss already. Don't force me to hide from the thing I'm trying to kill just to let me kill it 5 minutes later with no real reason as to why I was hiding from it in the first place. Every time I saw one of these stealth sequences, I died a little inside. I didn't want to do it. It wasn't fun, it wasn't done with love, or even knowledge of how to do a good stealth game. I just knew in the back of my mind though that all I really had to do was make it from one end of the room to the other, and then it would be over and I could get back to the fun stuff. Like the combat! If you like the combat of the first Lord of Shadows, then expect a nice copy-paste from the first game to this game. It's still a good combat system that's fun and even challenging at times. The combat is definitely the best part of Lord of Shadows 2. It's fluid and visceral, but I never felt as challenged as I did in the first Lord of Shadows. The first Lord of Shadows had some battles where it had you fighting against endless hordes of monsters while trying desperately to open windows to let sunlight into the room. That shit was hard, and I freaking loved it. Unfortunately, there's none of that here. Of course, since you're a full-fledged vampire now, you can't use the sunlight to your advantage, but you do get a pretty obviously included grapple execution that reveals some of your health. You know you saw this coming. It actually looks pretty cool, and some enemies die in really cool ways. The grapple is a little overpowered though, because when you grab an enemy, even bosses stop in their tracks, mid-attack, until the animation ends. If this is your first time jumping into a Lord of Shadows game, the combat will be definitely fun and enjoyable. But for players that have played the first Lord of Shadows, it actually can feel like a step down. There is no giant wogs to ride, no platforming puzzles that have you taking advantage of a giant beast to break down walls. I think they replaced the wogs with the god-awful stealth sections. But if there's one addition to the combat system that I thought brought the whole experience down, it's this. This right here is a crappy attempt at an experience system, a talent tree system, and an even crappier attempt at making things feel fresh. I think this actually adds a bit of grind to the game, because in order to increase your weapon level, or the mastery of said weapon, you need to use each skill that you will unlock till the experience of that skill maxes out. Then you transfer the experience from the skill to the weapon, which in turn levels up the weapon. Now I know there are people out there like me that have a set of skills that they use and are perfectly happy with it because they combo well together and you're perfectly comfortable using these skills. And there are skills that are not necessarily things you're going to be using all the time, but they're still fun to watch go off sometimes. This game forces you to use the skills that are awkward to combo together with other skills. Things like this skill. And this skill. These are one-shots to me, things that I would only use once in a while for the fun factor. But being forced to use it to max out the mastery of your weapon can feel like a grind, especially since as you continue the game, the enemies get harder and you need to be faster, and using an awkwardly slow skill becomes even more of a challenge. Maybe it's just me, maybe I'm just being whiny about it. I have read online about players that have all weapons maxed out just by backtracking and 100%ing the areas. And the one-shots that I'm complaining about actually level faster than other skills that would be considered spammable, so you don't have to use them as much as the spammable skills. Leveling the skills to level up your weapons mastery isn't really hard to do, it just takes time, but it doesn't really add to the game. I personally don't like being forced to use a skill that I have no intention of using once it's actually maxed out. And now, the only thing left to talk about is the story, which I will not spoil. However, I will say that just like the first Lord of Shadows, it takes a few hours of play before it really picks up. The God of War ripoff that happens at the very start of the game where you are scaling a huge thing, I don't have much of a problem with. Some people did though. What I had a problem with is the 12-minute cutscene that you're handed at the start of the game that explains the first game. Afterwards, you get 3 minutes of walking around, and then another 9-minute cutscene that sets the tone for this game. I'm not going to show any of it, because spoilers, obviously, but be warned, over 20 minutes of storytelling is shoved down your throat. The first 12-minute cutscene though was actually pretty interesting because of the art that was shown, but the 9-minute one made me want to kick something. The biggest problem with the story is the fact that it has no cohesion. Nothing makes sense and nothing's ever explained. There are effectively 2 stories going on here, but they never join. They only serve to make Dracula an emotional mess, and you are never given a reason to care. They try to make him seem like a merciless badass, but at the same time humanize him, and it never comes off well. So much so that it's almost 2 different people and they never meet in the middle. This is not what you would expect from a Castlevania portrayal of Dracula. The Dracula I know ripped out his own heart, put it on a spike for all to see. When you face Dracula, expect no mercy. But this isn't Dracula. This is a plot twist, and a bad one. Don't get me wrong though, the story has its high points. If I were to put my enjoyment of this game into a graph, it would look like a sound wave. The game's story has some serious ups and downs. I love some parts, and some parts just made me want to slap somebody. But there is no bigger disappointment than the ending sequence. It could have been so much better. When the situation was presented to me, my imagination had a freaking field day. The possibilities of how awesome this could have been were freaking astronomical. But what actually happened was such a letdown that I honestly wish I never saw it. It was bad. It was that bad. If you're a hardcore Castlevania fan, I warn you now, leave all expectations at the door because it will get butchered. If you did not like the first Lord of Shadows, avoid Lord of Shadows 2. If you did like the first Lord of Shadows, then still avoid this like the plague. My imagination of what this game could have been was 10 times better than what this game actually is. This game felt like a series of short stories that never converged into anything meaningful. The combat is the highlight of this game, minus the mastery system of course. The stealth sections dull the experience and simply did not need to be there. You can beat this game in 15 to 20 hours if you stick to the main story, and currently the game is $60. Can I recommend this game? I really would like to, but sorry, I can't. I really wanted this game to be good, but it just isn't. I said it before, the idea of what this game could have been is so much better than what it actually is. It fell so far from expectations that I almost wish that I never even played this game. This is one of those times where I really wish I could go back in time and stop this game from ever coming out because it's just that damn bad. And to end the Lord of Shadows saga on such a pitiful note is not only disappointing but a slap in the face to the first Lord of Shadows. Avoid this one. Like the plague. Your imagination of what this game could be is so much better than what this game actually is, and you're better off with your imagination. Alright guys, that's it for me. Hope you guys enjoyed the review. Let me know what you guys thought in the comments below. Sorry this one sucked, I wanted it to be good, but oh well. Have a good one guys. Peace.